And that may require that you get a little saucy from time to time. You may get a little saucy. You know what I mean? And that's okay. That ends up in your DMs. You okay? Ew, don't do that. Don't eat it. Drumstar Productions. To look at you is like a perfect dream after falling asleep, and your voice is like music to my ears. So beautiful. If men were smart, they would come here to listen. Well, you know what? Can you go round them up, please? I would appreciate it, audience. Ciao! Was my light showing the whole time? Welcome back to the channel co-creators. I'm mysticrainn, your resident internet psychic medium and spiritual advisor, and today we're going to be doing the 30,000 subscriber Q&A video. Now, we're a little bit ahead of the 30,000 at the moment. We're somewhere around 32 and a half, close to 33 now, I think. I'm a little late, but we're getting to it, and that's all I can say. I'm here now. Before we jump into this video, I do not do personal readings. If you are contacted on any form of social media, right now it's happening a lot on Instagram, where someone is DMing you, soliciting you for a reading, being like, hey, I think you have great energy, would love to read for you. If you could cash out me X amount of dollars, that's not me. The thing that's happening right now, particularly on the spiritual side of social media, where people are now pretending to be like tarot readers, and they are pretending to be us, and they are scamming people out of a lot of money. I am not doing personal readings, so if you hear from someone that's pretending to be me or looks like me or whatever reason that's trying to offer it to you, it is not me. If for whatever if at any point in time I decide to offer personal readings again, it'll be announced on YouTube with my face talking to you. If you don't hear from me like this, it's not me, okay? I will never ever reach out to you asking you for a reading. I will never DM you asking you if you want to get a reading from me. That's not how tarot readers or any kind of reader works. Readers are usually sought after. Readers don't usually go and solicit people their services. It's not really how it works, you guys. So if you've gotten contacted from somebody recently, it's not me. A lot of you guys have been really great in letting me know that there are people out there impersonating me. The issue is when that happens, the person that they are impersonating gets blocked from the channel or the website or the profile or whatever. Because of that, we can't go and report it because we can't see it, right? So we really rely heavily on you guys to find those pages and report them in order to get them taken down. I can't get them taken down because how do I go to Instagram and say this person is impersonating me when I can't even see the profile, right? So, and it takes a lot of reports to get those pages taken down, not just one or two people, unfortunately. Outside of that, I'm still available for spiritual hours. Get in where you fit in. Just to let you guys know, I will be decreasing the amount of slots that I have available for the spiritual hour. Why? I'm just really busy and my schedule is starting to get really tight, and there's certain cuts that I have to make in certain areas. It'll still exist, but just know that there won't be as many slots available as there usually are. So you just have to have a look at the website to see what's open if that's something that's interests you. Okay, so let's get into the Q&A part. This is always a really fun part, and the reason why it took me a long time to get to this one is because I just didn't think it would go this way. Q&As are so interesting because sometimes in my head, I think that you guys want to know one thing or do one thing, and then you guys start asking questions and you take me completely left field, and I'm like, I had no idea that that's what people were actually thinking. And then sometimes I had to think about it a little bit, think about what my answers are, how I actually feel about certain things, because you guys ask me questions I never considered before, blah, 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 yada, 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 okay? So, first question. What are your thoughts on marijuana and psychedelics? By Sia Avala. I mean, I don't smoke marijuana. I don't do psychedelics or any form of drug or anything like that. I can understand why people would do it, right? If you were someone that's really high strung, or maybe you're really stressed out, or you have a lot of anxiety, I can see how smoking marijuana will calm you down enough to make your mind open enough to receive messages, particularly if your mind is really chatty on its own or really busy on its own. I can see how like smoking marijuana or taking a gummy or something like that will calm you down enough to make you open enough to receive. I can see that. I can see how a psychedelic would do that. That makes sense to me. I have never done it myself, so it's not anything that I would recommend or not recommend, because I don't actually have any personal experience using that as a method when it comes to spirituality, but I can see why people would do it. Next question, the karmic DF, how to handle crowds, mass energy after a spiritual awakening. Really the biggest thing there is an awareness of what you're picking up on. So crowds, when you are energetically sensitive, crowds to you feel incredibly chaotic and incredibly dense, understandably, because it's a mixture of a lot of different energies from a lot of different people, and those energies are not homogenous or harmonious, because most times in those crowds, everyone is a stranger. Because everyone is a stranger, they have not yet formed a community, which means the energy has not yet gotten to a place where it can kind of, I guess, become similar. And so it's really chaotic, because you are dealing with incredibly different energies across the board. The only thing that you can really do is have an awareness of the fact that that's actually what's happening to you. In terms of what to do to make you feel more comfortable, there isn't a whole lot you can do. It's just a really uncomfortable experience. And that's why you notice a lot of people that are spiritually inclined or energetically sensitive have a tendency to be introverts, or they hang by themselves because too much energy is overwhelming for them. And crowds can actually make you sick, right? So for those of you that are energetically sensitive, days that you've been in a crowd, maybe you went to a concert, you had a great time, but for whatever reason, for 2-3 days late afterwards, you didn't feel good, right? They can make you energetically sick. I don't really know if there is a way to deal with crowds comfortably, if I'm honest, because it is uncomfortable energetically. It may simply just be having an awareness that that's what you're dealing with, which is chaos. By the way, guys, the Karmic DF has a really awesome TikTok. You should check it out. It's cool. Eclectic Witch Raven. So I went to someone for advice because I feel extremely tired and a constant pain in my stomach lives rent-free. There's nothing wrong with my physical body. And so this person told me that I'm so tired to the point that if we were all that tired, we would all be fucked up. She told me that I am hurting myself because of my emotions that are hitting my stomach. My question is, where do I even start to work on that? And how do I stop being so emotional about everything? I feel like it is eating up all of my energy. I would really appreciate if you could give me any advice. I love all of your videos, and I thank you for the effort you put into the channel to help others grow on their spiritual path. So here's the thing. This is kind of like if you know anything about the chakra system, we have a tendency to store energy in our body. And so energy that gets stored in the body is energy that you didn't let go, right? So what is emotion? Emotion is energy in motion. It's energy moving through, and then it hits your auric field. You feel it because it's in your field. But what happens is sometimes we feel it and then we hold it. Right? And we hold it for all types of reasons, right? Sometimes it's traumatic and we can't let it go. Sometimes it comes through and it hits our auric field at a time we feel like it's inconvenient, right? Maybe we're like, you know what, I'm really busy. I don't have time for this right now. Any of you ever do that where you felt something, but you didn't have time to express it at that moment? So you're like, I don't have time. And so you ignore it. And so what happens is by doing that, you're holding it in your auric field because you're not processing it in order for it to let it go. You have to flow to let it go, right? So what happens is that because it's in your auric field, it has to go somewhere, right? Energy is always in a state of motion. So usually what happens is that it enters the body and it kind of gets stuck in the body because it's being held there. But because energy is in motion, the area of the body that it gets stuck in is usually the area of the body that experiences some challenges because it's moving, but it's just stuck in that area, right? Because energy is always in motion. So for you specifically, if your pain is if you have constant pain in your stomach, then your energy gets stuck in your stomach. Your stomach is your solar plexus, right? And so for you specifically, what I suspect is that you have, and this is not a read, this is just how energy works. You probably have a lot of challenges when it comes to recognizing your own willpower, having confidence, setting boundaries, and sort of kind of owning and harnessing your own power, your own personal power. Speaking up for yourself, standing firm in your truth. And when you have a hard time doing that, you have a tendency to store energy in the stomach. And it could also lead to other things like digestive issues, indigestion, and it can make you gassy. Maybe you fart a lot or you get a lot of poos, right? Because all your energy is kind of being stored there. And so for you to release that energy, what you would have to do is work on your confidence, your willpower, standing up for yourself, setting boundaries. And the more you work in that energy, you start to move the chakra, right? As the chakra moves, the energy sitting in the chakra moves with it until it's dispelled out, right? Because it's like a wheel. And eventually it kind of shoots out. Now for me, I hold energy in my chest. I hold emotions in my chest. They sit in my heart center, and I process everything as trauma, right? And so emotional trauma. And so for me, my issues and where I store pain is the middle of my chest. There's always a lot of tightness. Anxiety for me can be a really huge issue. And I have situations where I feel like I can't breathe at all. Like it's like the wind gets knocked out of my body, and I can be laying down watching TV and all of a sudden I can't breathe because my energy sits there and it stores there. And what I had to do, I had to heal a lot of all the pain that I was hurting, grief, people that had passed away in my past that I never allowed myself to grieve for. I had to process all of that. I had to cry. And the more I processed all of that pain that was sitting in my heart, the less issues that I had with chest tightening and anxiety. I also used to have issues with my throat. I used to get a lot of sore throats because, contrary to popular belief, I used to have a really hard time speaking up for myself. And when you don't speak up for yourself, energy has a tendency to get stuck in the throat. You get sore throats, you get strep a lot sometimes, maybe you have thyroid issues, right? Some people store energy in their root chakra. They have issues with stability, feeling safe. People that store energy in their root chakra, you know it's you because you probably have a lot of lower back pain, right? And so I say all of that to say is that if you have stomach pain, your energy is just getting stored in the stomach area, which is your solar plexus. If you want to figure out how to alleviate pain as getting stored in different parts of your body, and you feel like it's not a physical ailment, most likely it's energetic, go and figure out what corresponding chakra is to the area of your body that you're feeling pain is. Figure out what that chakra is, figure out what that chakra represents, and then work on all of those things. Because most likely that's a part of your life that's not balanced and a part of your life that you need to work on. And the more you work on those things, then you start to clear out the chakra, you reactivate the chakra spins, right? Because it's a wheel. And when it's not spinning correctly, it gets stuck, or it's dormant, or it's not spinning fast enough. And when it happens, when energy enters it, instead of spinning with the wheel and then eventually spinning off of it, right, it kind of gets stuck in the wheel. And so that's what I would advise for something like that. Rockwell Brown Production says, what should a person do when they feel they've lost their spirituality? Personally, I feel like you do nothing. I break up with spirit all the time. Whenever it's too much for me, whenever I don't feel like being good, whenever I want to cuss somebody out, whenever I don't feel like healing, whenever I've cried too much, right? Whenever I just get exhausted with spirituality, I break up with spirit momentarily. And sometimes we're on a break for like 2-3 months until I start to come back to it. There is nothing wrong to feel like to lose your spirituality. At the end of the day, you're still human, right? We are not supposed to be communing with the beings in the clouds all day, right? We're still also a part of this reality, and that requires us to live it. And sometimes we just don't want to deal with spirituality. Sometimes in order to deal with the crap that we're going through in life, we have to turn our attention to it and turn our attention away from other things. It is okay if you feel like you lose touch to your spirituality. When it's time to get back in touch with it, you will be called to it. It's not a big deal. Apre D says, how do you feel about past life regression, and how do the past lives we had correlate to having ancestors? It's a bit confusing that in past lives we may have been a different race. Now, I thought this one was really fascinating, and I can see that you are a Black woman. And the reason why I wanted to answer it is I can see from your perspective why it would be really confusing that in another life you would potentially be a different race, right? Particularly, racial divides exist everywhere. Obviously I live in the United States. It's really bad in the United States. We live in a time where my mother, not my grandmother, my mother wasn't allowed to drink out of the same water fountain. My mother was not allowed to use the same toilet. Not my grandma, right? Not my great-grandma, but my mom wasn't allowed to use the same water fountain. We live in a society where it has been ingrained in you that you are different. It has been, not only are you different, it has been ingrained that you are different and also inferior. So when it's ingrained into you like that, part of your identity it's arguable maybe your entire identity becomes your race or the color of your skin, right? Whereas, for example, white people are people, right? Black people are black people, right? A white woman is a woman. I'm a black woman, right? And so for you, part of your experience is being black first. And so when that becomes your entire identity, I can understand how it would be hard to consider being another race in a different lifetime. But I'll put it this way. My dog is a Yorkshire Terrier, right? Perhaps in a different lifetime, she was a male golden retriever. In our mind, that makes sense because she's still a dog, right? So it is possible for you to be a different race in another lifetime because you're still human, right? It's only in this particular reality where we get so caught up on the amount of melanin that exists in somebody's skin. In other planetary systems, they may have different colored beings. And I say colored because they're not necessarily brown or white. Some beings are purple or green, right? But they don't necessarily have the same strife that we have. Now, some planets do have the same strife in terms of there being a divide or maybe a caste divide or something like that. But there's also a fair amount of planets that don't have that racial divide structure that we do have. And I say that because not only do I talk to the spirits, I can speak to ETs as well. And so they share these things with me. But I do understand your perspective of how that would be difficult. Now, how do ancestors tie in? Souls are part of soul groups and they're part of soul tribes, right? You have a tendency to incarnate with your soul group and your soul tribe. And even though it's an ancestor, let's say they can be 5 greats ago, it's still an ancestor. There is no time outside of our reality, right? So even though they may have been incarnate 5 months ago or five generations ago, it's very possible that you were incarnate with them too 5 generations ago. But because we're still a soul group, we have a tendency to incarnate together. And so right now they may be sort of on the other plane or whatever as an ancestral guide with you. And that's why you can sort of be ancestors in that way. And that's how they present it to you. Now, that does not necessarily mean that in your situation, right, as a black woman, that your ancestors have always been black. Sometimes maybe they could have been white previously, but what people do is present themselves in a way that you can receive. I'll give you a quick example. I had a mediumship reading that I did with somebody many years back. And someone had came through and I felt really like grandma energy, but the person I was describing to them, they didn't know. I was seeing a person that was really young, really vibrant, bright red lipstick, curly hair, but they were like young. It was like a young woman who was vibrant and like dancing. I remember she showed herself like dancing around and she was really jovial and happy. And I was explaining this to this person and they had no idea who I was talking about. And I was like, that's not your grandma? And they were like, no, I have no idea who that was. Anyway, they went home and they went through old family photos and realized that the person I had described was a young version of their grandma that they had never met, because obviously they had only knew their grandmother as an old person. But sometimes when spirit reveals themselves to you, they not only reveal themselves to you in a way that you can receive, they reveal themselves in a way that they want to be seen, right? So if the last memory you have of somebody is old, or maybe they're sick, or maybe they can't walk, when they reveal themselves to you in the afterlife, so to speak, right? They may be young, or they may be healthy, or they may be walking again because they don't want to carry that image with them, right? And so you seeing your ancestors, right, is a combination of, one, they probably haven't reincarnated yet, because even though it's 5 generations ago, there's no time outside of here, so to them it may not necessarily be a long time. 2, it does not necessarily mean that they haven't had past lives in which they were a different race. They are just showing you the race that they're showing you because that is the way that you can receive them, and they want you to know that they're part of your soul group. So Shiva Bobtail asks, how to tell the difference between messages from your guides, downloads, and your own thoughts. It comes in so quick, so sometimes I'm not sure what it is. Shiva, that's actually how you tell. You tell because it came in quick. You have to ask yourself, is it mine? When things come in quick like that, you say, is it mine? Meaning, would I have reached this conclusion based on the current thought track that I was on? Based on how I see the world and how I see reality, would I have gotten there by myself? Based on my current mood, would I have felt that way, right? Or did anything trigger me in the last few seconds that would have made me reach that conclusion? If the answer to all of that is no, it's probably not your thought. Just ask yourself, is it mine? So btone03 says, how to love people unconditionally, even when they're the very people that oppress you or hate you simply because of who you are, i.e. racist, homophobia, misogynist. Just to clarify, I don't mean unconditional love as in tolerate and put up with other people's bullshit. I think that what I'm really asking is, how do I free myself from the hurt and the pain of other people's darkness, even when it still affects me directly, so I can continue to be in my light and power? So that is a common misconception. People think that in order to love, you must tolerate, and that's not what it is at all. Unconditional love is simply loving without expectation. Loving without expectation, or expecting that the person you love loves you back, that they do something for you, that they're nice to you, that they're kind to you, that they're thoughtful of you, that they are considerate of you. Loving unconditionally means that you love freely without expectation that anything, including love, is returned. But that's it. That's where it stops, right? It does not mean that you are tolerable. It does not mean that you like the person. You can love and not like somebody, right? You can love and find somebody to be an absolute pain in the ass. You can love and still want to fuck a bitch up, right? In spirituality, we're taught compassion and empathy, and all of those things are true. But just because you're learning what compassion is, just because you're learning what empathy is, that does not mean that spirituality also teaches you to be a pushover or to roll over and play dead. Nothing about spirituality teaches you or requires you to put up with anything from anybody. We, as humans, have somehow tacked that on to the end of the lesson ourselves by going, okay, I'm learning how to be compassionate. Oh, empathy. Yeah, be empathetic. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That we tack on that we, for some reason, can't do all these other things when nobody asked or required that of us, right? Listen, I'm a whole lot of love and light. But if you fuck with me again, just don't fuck with me, right? Because we're going to have a problem, right? Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. I love you, but because I love me too, we're going to have a problem, right? And so you can be in that space that you can love someone but love you too. And it's not even about loving you more. It's just that you love you too. If I can love you unconditionally, I love myself unconditionally. By loving myself unconditionally, that requires that I care for myself, that I advocate for myself, and that I stand up for myself, and that I remove obstacles, and that I remove things that harm me because I love myself unconditionally. Because I love unconditionally, I may have to take my earrings off and we may have to throw hands. I don't know. It depends on whether or not you want to keep playing. But there's nothing in spirituality that says that you can't get down if you don't need to get down. For some reason, that's us that think that we do that, right? Because you love unconditionally requires that you love yourself too. There is no way to love unconditionally without reaching a point in your self-love journey where you love yourself too. That's the only way you can love unconditionally, right? As within, as without, as above, so below. It has to exist inside of you before it can exist outside of you. If it exists outside of you, that means you love yourself unconditionally too, right? And if you love yourself unconditionally too, you guard yourself, you protect yourself, and you make sure that people don't run you amok. And that may require that you get a little saucy from time to time. You may get a little saucy, you know what I mean? And that's okay. Lorraine King says, I have so many questions. I barely figured out that I am a healer. Your last two videos really opened my eyes. I don't know why anyone would want to sign a contract to become a healer because it takes a lot out of you mentally, physically, and emotionally. Like it's a never-ending contract with these people. Before I can heal from one another, one pop in my life, so I understand what you're saying about the healer thing and not understanding why you would ever sign a contract for that. So here's the thing. Yeah, okay, it is a contract that you sign, but you no one becomes a healer. You are a healer, and you're probably a healer due to your soul's origin. So if you're a star seed, right, your soul originated on a different planet. It could originate on Earth, right? Just because your soul originated here, you're still a star seed. You're just of Earth, right? But there are planets that are healing planets, right? There are planets that are like paradise planets. There are planets with civilizations that have healing frequency, and the beings on the planet carry healing frequency. And so if that is your soul origination, if that's your soul origin, then You probably have incarnated with a soul group that are also healers as well, or have healing tendencies, and you may not notice it, but it comes out in little ways, right? Maybe you have people around you that are nurses, or physical therapists, or even dentists, or psychologists, or coaches, or maybe guidance counselors at school and stuff. You'll notice that there are people around you that have a tendency to do something healing, or the people that are around you just give really, really good advice. Maybe they're just really, really wise, right? It's because your soul most likely originated in one of these sort of planetary systems that have like healing vibrations or whatever. Because that would be where your soul would originate from, that means your soul carries healing vibration, and healing for you is natural. So it's not necessarily something that requires you to learn how to be a healer. It's not really a situation where souls go, you know what, that's my next part of the journey. Like, it's really most likely your soul originated from one of those healing planetary systems. Maybe you just were a healer and that's what you know how to do. And so you just do it, and you do it well. You didn't do it because you were trying to choose sort of a life of suffering for yourself. You just originated. That's what your soul is, and that's what your soul does, and so it's natural for you. So my question is, how do you find love when you only attract damaged people? So here's the thing, sweetie. My question for you is, why do you see people as damaged? And if you feel that it's possible for a person to be damaged, my second question would be, do you use those words on yourself? People are not damaged. People are people. They are human, and they are living the human experience, and the human experience is really hard. And sometimes we have to give ourselves enough credit for it being really, really difficult. And sometimes if you're having a moment where you're purging, really, and you're experiencing essentially, which is healing, but society teaches you that it's a mental illness and that you're really just breaking down, right? It doesn't mean you're damaged. It just means you're processing. And so I would encourage you to look at maybe why you view people as being damaged. And then also examine whether or not there have been times in your life where you viewed yourself as the same, as damaged. Because if that is how you view yourself, then you will attract people who are similar, because like energy attracts like energy. At the end of the day, everybody is mirrors of each other. So if you may think that you are damaged, or that there are things wrong with you, then you will attract people who feel the same way about themselves. Not people who are actually damaged, but people who think that they are damaged. And they may even say that they're damaged, right? And then you accept that, and then you go, okay, look, they're damaged. But nobody is damaged. If you reframe the narrative of who you are and what kind of people you like in your life, then you start to attract those people into your life. Okay, so April Guscott says, how to open yourself up to receive messages. I've been told I was ignoring these sent to me, but I didn't know. Does fasting help, or certain practices like meditation or anything else? Okay, April, listen to me really good. I have received messages while being 2 patties deep and a Five Guys burger with fries, okay? You don't need to fast in order to receive a message. You don't need to do anything that's self-sacrificing to receive a message. I understand the practice, though. I understand how people would feel that fasting would help, because it's one less thing to distract you. Food is one less thing that you have to worry about, which frees up space in the mind to receive, right? Also, this is just my opinion, when you don't eat, you have a tendency to be a little bit lightheaded, a little bit delirious, and sometimes those feelings mimic, depending on how hungry you are, feelings of highness. And anybody that's ever smoked weed or eaten a brownie or something like that, you also have a tendency to go into a state at that point too that makes you more susceptible to receiving messages. I suspect that that's why fasting helps. I understand that people say it's a way to get closer to God or whatever, but I do think if we boil it down, that's probably what it's doing to you. But I mean, you don't have to do that. I receive downloads while being on Zoom meetings for work, right? What you really need is to have space for them to speak to you, space where they can communicate to you whenever. Now, meditation does help because when you're meditating, you're pushing things out of your mind. And when your mind becomes quiet or still, all of a sudden there's room that exists for downloads, insights, new information. But if your mind is too crowded, it's hard to pick up on anything. And it's not that like you're doing something wrong, it's just the mind is crowded. Anyone ever have a really hard day at work and it was just really busy, and then you sat down at home and tried to read a book and then couldn't read it because your mind was too busy, so you put the book down? It's not that you can't read, it's just your mind is busy. Right? So for you, meditation probably would help because it'll quiet the mind, which will help you get insights. But you don't need to do any form of self-sacrificing or anything like that in order to get downloads from Spirit. Spirit does not care. Spirit is never going to mandate that you be hungry to talk to you. That's just not how it works. Drumstar Productions. To look at you is like a perfect dream after falling asleep, and your voice is like music to my ears. So beautiful. If men were smart, they would come here to listen. Well, you know what? Can you go round them up, please? I would appreciate an audience. I have learned so much about women and just love overall. You're very intelligent and wise. To be honest, you're a wonderful person overall, very calm and spiritual. Thank you. But I do have a question. How do you know you are a psychic? Like, what made you feel you were? And are all people who claim to be psychic really psychic, or are some of these people scams? So I wasn't the first person to brand myself to be a psychic. Society branded me as a psychic. I was mortified over that because I thought it was, because society teaches you it's taboo. I thought people would think I was weird. And eventually over time, I just accepted the fact that that's how society saw me. Now, that's why I'm mysticrainn. That's not, I don't call myself psychic rainn. I call myself mysticrainn because I was specifically trying to find a title that was not psychic because I didn't want to carry the taboo of being psychic. How I ended up accepting psychic was I had wanted to read for people, and so I started to sign up for those websites like Keen or like Cashapp to be a reader, and they brand you as a psychic. That's how they make their money. They brand you as a psychic. They turn you into like this dog and pony show, and that's how you get branded. And that's how people find you. And so with time, I just accepted that that's how people saw me. But initially, I was actually really turned off from the idea of being a psychic. Now I kind of embrace it. I kind of find it to be funny. At the end of the day, a psychic is someone that's intuitive. That's all it really is. So that's what it means. It just means to be intuitive. A psychic is someone that has developed their intuition and constantly works to improve their intuition so that they have the ability to use it and deploy it at will. The psychic just means to be intuitive. So if you feel you're somebody who is really intuitive and you work to deploy your intuition at will, and you find that you're usually right, then yeah, call yourself a psychic. Everybody else is going to do is going to call you a psychic. So, sometimes you have to get over the hump of it being too taboo. And are most psychic scams? I wouldn't say most psychics are scams, but there are a lot of them that are scams. And one thing that you guys can look out for, psychics won't come to you and solicit you. A psychic is not going to end up in your DM. Any psychic that ends up in your DMs, you okay? Ew, don't do that. Don't eat it. Anyone that ends up in your DMs, like on Instagram, going, "Hey, I would love to read for you," that's a scam. We would never do that. Now, we may have our own Instagram pages that are like, "Hey, I'm open for business. Like, if you want to book a time with me, here's the legit website where you can pay me through PayPal and your money is trackable," right? Like, real psychics are usually trackable somehow, right? A fake psychic isn't trackable. But a real psychic, you can find them. You can, you know what I mean? You can get a refund, or they have a cancellation policy, right? There's some form of it being official if they're legit. Anyone that's coming to you without you asking, going, "Hey, let me read for you," is not real. It's a scam. Anyone that says to you, "Oh, I saw you and you got all this energy around you. There's a curse on you. I'm the only person that can take it off," it's a scam. Anyone that says, "Hey, you don't know me, but I can change your life for $2,000, it's a scam. And Pulliam says, the spiritual side versus the business side, what's the difference and how do we navigate both successfully? That is the difference. You said the difference. The difference is the spiritual side and the business side. The business side is a business, right? If you have a spiritual business, it's a business. If it makes no money, it doesn't work, right? And so sometimes, because with our spirituality, we get wrapped up in this idea of compassion and empathy. We become really giving, which are all really beautiful qualities. That what happens, though, sometimes we take from ourselves when it comes to the business aspect of things, right? And we allow people to take from us as well. A business is a business. It should run as a business. You are a business person and you make business decisions. Any decisions you make about a spiritual business needs to be a business decision. You make it without emotion or love of the collective, right? If you are doing what you're doing for free or you're not making any money, you're not going to want to do it anymore. And then at that point, you're not even of service to the collective anyway, right? And so when you're doing a spiritual business, because I'm assuming that this is what you mean, spiritual businesses take an enormous amount of energy in a different way than a regular business would, because a spiritual business is requiring energy from you to come out, right? You are literally taking from that cup and you're pouring it out, and it's your spiritual cup. It's your essence that you're giving away in a spiritual business. And so there needs to be some sort of exchange of energy in order for it to be balanced, right? And that exchange of energy is usually in the form of money and payment. And if the energy exchange is not balanced for you, you're not going to want to do it anymore. And so this comes out a lot in pricing, right? And so if the exchange isn't right, if you're doing things as part of the spiritual business, maybe you're a coach or you're doing readings and someone books with you and you think to yourself, I don't want to do this just for that much. That's not even enough to do what it is that I do. Right? If you feel that it's not an energetic balance, your price has to go up, right? Your price has to reach a point where you no longer mind doing what it is that you're doing, right? If you can walk away going, oh yeah, that was great, that was a good session, then that's how you know the energy is balanced. But if you feel like, I just feel like, that's not enough, I'm too tired, blah, 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 it's not in balance, right? So with your business side, you make business decisions. You make it with your mind, not your heart. You don't operate from the heart center when you're doing business, right? You don't make emotional business decisions. There is no such thing as a spiritual business decision. A business is a business, right? The service is spirituality, right? If you mix those two together, you usually end up undercutting yourself and people end up undercutting you. So Dandro210 says, I found you thanks to your tarot card explanation videos, which have been tremendously helpful. However, I was wondering if you think anyone can do tarot. I know some people are more spiritually in tune than others. So does this mean that only those people can read tarot, or anyone who wants to try to read tarot? So anyone can read tarot. That's why I put the videos out there, specifically for the reason of some people are more in tune than others. When I first started reading tarot, my intuition did not kick in like that. To me, there was a bunch of different pictures on a card and none of it made any sense. And that's why there's two different kinds of readers. There are intuitive readers, there are traditional readers. I'm a traditional reader. The difference is an intuitive reader is someone that can pick up a deck and look at a picture, and for whatever reason, the symbol triggers something in them intuitively and they can get messages from it. When I first started reading tarot, that did not happen to me. So I started as a traditional reader. I actually went to school. I had classes, right? I had a fall term and a spring term and a summer term, and I had homework and I had projects, right? And classmates, and I went to school for being a psychic, right? And one of the many classes that I took tarot classes, and I learned the traditional way. And traditional readers learn the traditional way, which means learning traditional card meanings. Those videos of tarot that I put up are the traditional meaning of the tarot cards. I learned it that way because I had to. I learned with that. I learned with flashcards and highlighters and books and notes in the margins, because my intuition did not kick in when I looked at them. I was very confused when I looked at them. So I say all that to say that yes, anybody can read them. You just have to want to study it. If you study it, then you'll learn it. That's how it works. Kazia says, this may be silly, but the spirits sigh. Yes, they sigh. I believe that I may have clairaudience, but I find when I'm meditating, I often hear sighs or the clearing of the throat, and I definitely know it's not me, but I also don't know what it means. They sigh. They sigh, they clear their throats. Spirit have personalities, and sometimes they're sighing because they're sighing. Sometimes they're sighing to get your attention, right? My spirit guides are full of personalities. I have some guides who are a little bit petty. I suspect they're matching my level of pettiness, and so we just get on really well. But sometimes if I'm not paying attention, I'll hear my guides go, and if I'm like not listening, they'll do it again. Until I go, what, right? Yeah. Or they sigh really heavily, or maybe you're talking to them and then they'll tell you something and you go, oh, so this is what this means, right? So they'll say, like a stupid example would be like, maybe you're asking them about relationships and about love or whatever. And maybe you're dating someone and you're like, is it meant to be? And spirit can be like, oh, well, it's meant to be for now. And then you're like, oh, so it's meant to be. They may go, but that's the thing, but they definitely do sigh. Queen Savage 2.0 says, what does spirit sound like when you hear them talking? For me, it feels like I have a headset, like an AirPod in or something, and it's turned way down low. It's really low, and that's how I hear them talking to me. So sometimes when I'm reading, if people start talking, like if I'm like reading and you're sitting in front of me and you start talking and I hear it go off, sometimes what I've been due to people, like I'll shut my eyes and I'll go, wait a minute, hold on, and I'll do this, and a lot of times people will see me turn to this side because it's usually this ear that I hear out of, and I'll be like, wait, because I'm trying to hear what they're saying. And that's how it sounds for me. Everybody's different. Mama Goddess Reacts says, let me start off with this. I'm one of your 20,000 that joined your tribe. My mentor recommended me your beginner tarot reading video, and it helped me tremendously. I know those videos were exhausting to do after a while, but you gave me all the tools I needed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're very welcome. My question is, how have you built your confidence over the years of being a tarot reader, and how do you push past the people like Christians who see tarot as something as evil? Well, first part of the question, how I built my confidence over the years, really, over the years, I just stopped caring. In the beginning, I was incredibly self-conscious, really, really insecure about it. Didn't really tell a lot of people. That's how I became mysticrainn, because I needed an alias. I didn't want to go by my government name, and then like people figured it out. And so, but then eventually what started to happen was that I started to realize I was helping a lot of people and changing people's lives. And that meant more to me. It meant more to me to be able to stop somebody from committing suicide than dealing with somebody's really ignorant opinion of me. And when I realized that I was making a difference by being who I am, then I stopped caring about people over the years. And I also learned to laugh about it and have fun with it. It is weird, right? Society teaches us that tarot is weird. I remember once upon a time in my life thinking that people that did tarot were witches, that it was evil. I used to hold those ideas at one point in time. And so I grant grace and space to people that currently hold them now. And I also grant grace and space to the idea that people may look at me like that, because once upon a time I used to look at people like that. The first time I saw a psychic, I was terrified. I thought that she was going to put something on me. What that something is, no idea. Be it roots or a spirit, I don't know. But I thought that if I walked away from her, that she was going to curse me or something. And I think about it now and I laugh because I realize that I developed into the very thing that I was afraid to become. But sometimes you have to laugh at yourself. It's weird. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, especially if you're a reader that does talk to the spirits, like, talk to spirits is weird. I mean, to be able to talk and other people are looking at you and they don't see what you see in the room, that's a little weird, right? Right? To be able to talk to the people in the clouds, it's a little weird, right? And sometimes you have to find the humor in that and not take yourself so seriously. And when it comes to the Christians and how do I push past them, I don't care. The thing about the church is that the church rules through fear, unfortunately. And, you know, as a kid, I went to church. I was Baptist. And then in my early adulthood, I would go to a Catholic church, and every day for lunch at work, I would leave work and I would go to mass, and then I would go back to work. And so I understand where they're coming from. It's taught that it's evil. It's taught that it's the work of the devil. It is taught that you go to hell, right? People really genuinely believe that they will burn on fire for eternity. And when you have that level of indoctrination, doing tarot and being a tarot reader, they may view you as evil. But at the end of the day, that's their journey. That's not yours. That's their fear. That's not yours. If they want to hold on to that, they're more than welcome to hold on to that. It's not my job to rehabilitate them. I'm just trying to enjoy life. Joshua Barosio says, how does someone go about developing their physical abilities like clairaudience and clairsentience? So people have a dominant clair or clairs. And those are usually the ones that usually get developed. And you could tell what your dominant, so let's talk about clairaudience, right? People with clairaudience have a really strong inner voice, right? They can hear their voice really vividly in their head or in their mind's eye. And people that are clairaudience sometimes will either hear spirit as physical talking, like me talking to you right now, or as voice that they can hear in their mind's ear, right? So you got a mind's eye and you got a mind's ear. They can hear that way too. People that are like that usually have a tendency to have really strong inner voices, right? People that are like that are usually really sometimes have sensitive hearing. Maybe you can pick up on tones or pitches that other people can't pick up on. Pitches, you know, that other people can't necessarily hear. You can pick up on changes and inflections and tones in people's voices that not other people can notice, and you can pick it up to a point where it's so sensitive that you can sense maybe a change in thought or a change in mood. That's how sensitive your hearing is. Because your hearing is already really sensitive, spirit will use that as a way to communicate with you because it's the easiest, right? Let's take clairvoyance, right? People that have the ability, who are clairvoyant, can sometimes see physical apparitions, or they see a lot of things in their mind's eye, right? But think about someone that doesn't have an inner voice, right? Like some people don't have an inner voice. Whereas a lot of people have this voice talking to them, which has like their inner self, like their selves is like their voice, but like in their head, and they can talk themselves through stuff. Not everybody has that. Some people only have concept maps, right? So there's no voice, it's quiet, but they can see a lot of pictures, right? Because that's how they process the world. And so their ability, they may have a clairvoyant ability because they already see a lot of pictures and they're really sensitive that way. And so spirit will use that because it's already developed. So sometimes it's not about trying to develop a certain clair. A lot of times the smarter thing to do is to use a clair that's already sensitive and then work on that to be the clair that you use to talk to spirit. But in terms of clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, clair whatever, if there is a clair that you like the most, or you think it's cool, or you want to use that one, or you want to try to develop it, the thing that you should just do is to ask spirit to communicate with you that way. If you want to hear them talking to you, ask them to talk to you. If you want to feel them, ask them to touch you, or you know what I mean? Or you know, some people can smell. Ask them to give you things to smell so you know that they're there, right? The people that can smell, you can say to spirit, hey, you know, to one of your guides, hey, to let me know that it's you every time you show up, please bring me a rose. Please bring me a rose. And then next thing you'll know, you'll start to smell roses. You'll be sitting on your couch watching TV and you'll smell roses, and that's how you know your guide has showed up because they want to talk to you. So you really just ask them to communicate with you in a way that you would prefer to be communicated with. And then you can say to them, for me to know that you're here, please communicate with me in this particular way. And then they'll do it. And then with repetition, then you kind of get used to it. And last but not least, because we're wrapping up this video, we've been here for a minute, Yoni Art by Katie Lloyd says, what's the morning process to connect into spirit or our higher self in order to set up energy to receive guidance throughout the day? It is the same way. Is it the same way you connect in before a reading, or do you recommend more at that time? Thank you, Queen. It's different for everybody. Really, if you want to receive guidance, the biggest thing about receiving guidance is to be open to receiving guidance. They just need space to talk to you. They need a window to talk to you. That's it. There is no rule or requirement that says that you have to have a ritual to receive. You just have to have space. What the ritual does, you doing the ritual is you doing something physical to open the window of receiving. But you can really open it through the mind, right? So if you want something to know, you can literally wake up in the morning and say, okay, Spirit, let me know what you got. What you got? And then they'll start talking. But for those people that like a ritual in the morning when you get up, make sure you have a decent amount of time in your day before you start the day, right? So if you go to school or if you're working, make sure you have time before you start. Wake up earlier, you know what I mean? And have a calming routine in the morning where you wake up, you drink your cup of coffee or you drink some tea, you go for a morning walk. It doesn't have to be a long walk. And a walk can be a form of moving meditation, and you're clearing out energetic space. The problem with life is that you wake up and then you go straight into your day, you go straight into your working, and everything is really chaotic. Because of the chaos, the mind is noisy. And so it doesn't mean that you're not downloading and receiving messages. It's just because it's so noisy in there that you can't actually hear what's happening, right? And so it may be coming in, but you can't hear them because it's noisy. And so what you want to do is find ways for you to quiet your mind. And you keep your mind quiet so you are open to receiving. You can journal in the morning if you like to write. You can write a letter to Spirit. Good morning, Spirit. So happy I get to work with you today. These are all the things that's going to happen today that I'm really excited about. Please keep me safe. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your insights. You can write to Spirit that way, which is really, another way of me really just saying journaling. And before you do a reading, you could do a quick meditation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It just depends on how much you need. You'll know how much you need. Or you could take 5 deep breaths to calm down the nervous system, calm down the brain, so there's space in there for you to hear what the message is. But at the end of the day, it's space that you need. It's not a ritual. There's not like steps 1 through 3 that unlock the message. That's not what it is. You are always receiving messages. You just can't hear it because the mind is too noisy. So what you're doing is quieting the mind. You do what you need to quiet the mind to keep it quiet. That's it. So if waking up an extra hour earlier so you have quiet time to drink coffee and tea and go for a nice morning walk so your mind is quiet, then that's what the ritual is. If you want to journal, then that's what the ritual is. Some people find it really relaxing to get up early to watch the news and have a cup of coffee. Then that's what the ritual is. You just have to quiet the mind and quiet down the nervous system. And that's how you are more easily able to connect or to hear. So those are all the questions. It was a lot of questions, but I tried to get to everything that I felt like, other people would have probably asked, but just didn't, or was afraid to ask or anything like that. And I hope you guys got a lot out of this and that you've learned a lot and that you get to walk away with new perspectives. Before I let you go, make sure you check out the links in the description box below. As always, if you like what you see, please subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you all soon.